I want to talk about artist perception for a second. I think that typically artists become one of two things. They either embarrass themselves to gain publicity and traction, or they become elevated to the level of near godhood by the music industry and fans alike. There seems to be a separation between modern artists and the audience that consumes their material. Now, I'm not saying that there are zero genuine artists out there, there clearly are, but it's a lot harder to really relate to artists when they're focused on portraying this character to showcase and produce their art. However, not all artists are concerned with marketing themselves in the most profitable way. There is one artist that reminds me that these are actual people, human beings that are not just products to be sold, but those who have gone through real challenges throughout their lives, and it comes across as genuine in their music, which is fascinating to me, because you realize these rappers are real, they feel human, and to me, no rapper is more human than Isaiah Rashad. To give some background, Isaiah Joel McLean is a California rapper, singer, songwriter, and producer originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee. According to Isaiah, growing up in Chattanooga was like growing up anywhere else. He moved around a lot due to his mom working as a janitor at various schools that he would attend, and his dad left the family when he was 3. Isaiah would work many jobs when he was 16, from Hardee's and DirecTV to the microfilm department and TVA, a children's learning program. He was motivated by the desire to buy clothes, take his girlfriend out on dates, and gas money, as he didn't want to pay back student loan checks. While in college, Isaiah would bounce around living with different people and trying to record at any studio he could. Isaiah had started writing songs around 14 years old and started rapping around 16. While in college, Isaiah, along with fellow rappers YG Tut and Michael Da Vinci, started The House, a collective of Tennessee artists and producers. Prior to his major label debut, Isaiah had a collection of songs that were made as far back as 2009 from his MySpace page that had been dubbed Fly Times Cool Places, as well as a mixtape, Welcome to the Game, that served as a precursor to his first major project and was regarded as a solid body of work by fans. This would also spawn the fan-made mixtape Pieces of a Kid. Isaiah had never planned on being a rapper. Originally, he was going to be a preacher, but when his brother lent him a copy of Outkast's AT Aliens in middle school, he decided he wanted to become a rapper. Even during the month of getting signed to TDE, Isaiah was going to start an apprenticeship to be an electrician. Isaiah would be networking with people from DJ Booth and Rolling Stone and building connections with A&Rs, and in summer of 2012, Isaiah had joined the Smokers Club tour with artists like Joey Badass, Juicy J, Smoke DZA, and more. In December of 2012, he started getting attention from labels but showed little interest aside from TDE due to meeting the former president of TDE, Dave Free, randomly. Isaiah signed to TDE in March of 2013, with the official announcement coming out on September 20th. That same month, the music video for Shot You Down was released, and the BET cypher featuring every member of TDE was aired. In November, Sylvia Demo was announced, originally slated for a December release, but was pushed to January. Originally, Pieces of a Kid was supposed to be released, but Isaiah scrapped the project due to the depressing subject matter and not having enough focus placed on it. The only song that was released was Shot You Down, the last one recorded for that project. I believe that Isaiah is one of the most underrated artists out today. The way he can seamlessly discuss personal and relevant topics over such varied but beautiful instrumentals without feeling contrived is really remarkable. I truly think he is capable of going down as one of the best rappers of the last 10 or 20 years. I'm going to try and break down his history and just why I feel he's such a special artist, especially in today's landscape of hip-hop, starting with his debut project, Sylvia Demo. To break down the history of Isaiah's music, I need to begin at the project that really started it all. On January 24th, 2014, Isaiah released his major label debut, Sylvia Demo. The project debuted at number 40 on the Billboard 200 and sold 8,500 copies in the first week. Following the release of Sylvia, Isaiah landed on XXL's freshman cover of that year, along with other notable artists such as Chance the Rapper, Ty Dolla $ign, Lil Durk, and Kevin Gates. The album was named after Isaiah's car, which originally belonged to his mother, and features several other names referencing other mixtapes or working titles on the cover, scratched out in place of the final name. The project is described as a concept album of sorts, a culmination of his experiences from childhood to high school and college. He says it's like getting off of work at 6 and not going home, but on a drive with friends until 6 a.m. With its 14 tracks, the album tackles a multitude of topics, including drug abuse, growing up, depression, family, race, and police brutality. The production is prominently soulful and relaxing, which is a swift departure from the trap sound we've become so accustomed to today. But there is a good amount of variety on this album. You have dark, energetic bangers like R.I.P. Kevin Miller, Modest, and Banana, and calm, soulful songs like Sylvia Demo, Ronnie Drake, and Heavenly Father. What always interested me was that even with different kinds of production, Isaiah always had a style of delivery and lyrics that matched the vibe of the song. His voice was just perfect for any beat on the album. Ronnie Drake sees Isaiah discussing race and the experience of dealing with police and how things have not really changed at all in the grand scheme of things. On Banana, Zay details his come up in dealing with his absent father, and the pure anger and energy from that situation is so palpable in the song. On the track Heavenly Father, Isaiah introspectively discusses his depression and lack of fatherly guidance, and looks towards God, aka the Heavenly Father, for help. The track is accompanied by an ethereal beat that pairs so well with the dark subject matter that it manages to create one of Isaiah's most emotional songs. Somehow, all of these ideas and topics fit cohesively onto this project, and every track has the sound that just makes sense for this type of music. One of Isaiah's biggest sources of inspiration is his Southern music. From the song titles to lyrics to the production, the South bleeds into every aspect of his music. This, along with influences from specific artists like Outkast, Scarface, Fugees, Jay-Z, T.I., Lil Wayne, Kanye, and Schoolboy Q, leads to his unique style of woozy yet soulful hip-hop. He isn't afraid to showcase his influences, but is able to make them his own, and distinguish himself both from the Southern hip-hop scene and his label mates. I personally consider this album to be a classic, and one of the best albums of the 2010s. I think the way Isaiah depicts his life story with such honesty and raw emotion over immaculate production is really incredible. It really feels like a true underdog story in a way that isn't dramatized to make it more appealing, it just is what it is. The humanity on this album is what I find so compelling. These issues are a lot of the same things that many people deal with, and to see him rise above them is inspiring. There are so many lines on this project that echo the same sentiments that I have in regards to my own life, that has become like this soundtrack to my existence in a way, and I can't help but feel this connection towards it. The album has become my favorite album of all time, and while it isn't as thought-provoking as To Pimp a Butterfly or as massive in scope as My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, it is an incredibly relatable album for me. I think this project is a masterpiece, and it was only the beginning for Isaiah. Following the release of Sylvia Demo, and receiving a lot of acclaim from fans and critics alike, everything was looking up for Isaiah. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. In interviews, Isaiah has stated that during this period he was dealing with drug addiction, depression, anxiety, and a lack of motivation. He stated that while touring with Schoolboy Q, he had gotten addicted to alcohol and Xanax. The situation was especially bad since with his newfound success he could support his drug habits. He was nearly dropped from the label on 3 separate occasions. Following a cutoff time and the threat of getting dropped, in August of 2016, Isaiah would release Free Lunch, the first single off of his debut studio album, TheSun'sTirade, which was released on September 2nd. The album's name is in reference to a long rant, which is how Isaiah describes the time between 2014 and 2016, the longest day of his life. The album would have features from Sid from the Internet and Hugh Augustine, as well as many members from the TDE roster like Zakari, Sir, J-Rock, SZA, and Kendrick Lamar. The sound of the record is loud and belligerent, but it could also be contemplative, this duality being a defining characteristic of Isaiah's music. Isaiah continues the conversation of substance abuse and mental health issues on this project, as the problems have only grown with time. Despite the album having more lively production on tracks like A Lot, What's Wrong, and Free Lunch, it takes place during a more difficult time in Isaiah's life. Drug addiction and alcoholism have become a serious problem for him, and would really affect his career at this point in time. It also finds its way into the beats for this album, giving us more laid-back production like Silk to Shaka, Four to Squaw, Dress Like Rappers, and Stuck in the Mud. I particularly love Four to Squaw, the track detailing his appreciation towards the world for recognizing his talents and allowing him to pay both his mom's bills and deal with fatherhood as a whole. The narrative of this album is also powerful, dealing with those types of issues to the point of being nearly dropped by your label and coming back more rejuvenated than ever is insane. The project continues the ongoing narrative that is Isaiah's life, and all of the issues that were building since even before Sylvia Demo, nearly boiling over in an irreparable way, but Isaiah was able to bounce back in spite of that. He really does feel like someone venting his frustrations and showcasing his flaws as an artist and a human in a deeply personal way. The album would once again be met with critical acclaim, debuting at number 17 on the Billboard 200 and selling 19,000 copies in its first week. Isaiah would go on to headline his own sold-out Lil Sunny tour in 2017 and would later perform at Smokers Club Festival in 2018. Things were looking good for Isaiah. He was back on track, people are loving his album, notoriety is growing. It all goes up from here. A lot of questions arose after 2016 where fans were expecting a new project from Isaiah. In 2017, Isaiah announced his next album, which would be named The House is Burning almost 2 years later in 2019. It was supposed to come out that summer of 2018 and was then pushed to before December, then 2019, and then continuously delayed. There have been many announcements and subsequent delays, much to the dismay of fans. Things were difficult for Zay fans, endlessly wondering when or how the album would ever get released. There were no concrete updates, no real answers, nothing from TD on what was happening. But there were also outside factors contributing to the delay of the album. In May of 2021, Isaiah did an interview with The Fader detailing everything that had been happening since the last album. After the Lil Sunny tour, Isaiah's battle with addiction persisted. It had gotten so bad that he had crashed both his own car and Top Dog's car that he managed to fix in time. He had gone home swearing to never rap again and returned to LA totally broke and living on a friend's couch. He had spent all of his money on friends, dinners, clothes and such. It was an escape, trying to avoid the abyss that he was dealing with, and the numbness seems to be the solution. In 2019, Isaiah was checked into rehab at Dana Point, California. He followed a routine: wake up at 7, eat breakfast at 8, therapy at 9:30, skill building at 11, more therapy at 4, and so on. Isaiah would emerge from rehab a month later, living with his stepfather for a while in California, before ultimately getting back to work on his album, listening to current artists but not eliminating what made his style his. He'd spent a lot of time with Kenny Beats, learning to freestyle, which helped free him from the constraints of the writing process. One of the most interesting things I got from this interview was that Isaiah had a newfound love of comic books, specifically one character, Mr. Miracle, a 1970s DC character reimagined by Tom King in 2017. Mr. Miracle would try to escape death, leaving him in a limbo state fighting demons. Mr. Miracle resonated with Isaiah as he so accurately represents what Isaiah went through, being described as being tortured his whole life and learning from being tortured, trying to escape hell so much it became a superpower of his. This becomes the artistic mindset for which Isaiah would create his next project. I think the reason why I don't carry the same frustration as I used to is because of the context. Isaiah didn't push out mediocre projects for the sake of streams or maintaining relevance in the mainstream. Life happened, and it prevented him from making his art. That's something I can wholeheartedly understand, and I almost feel guilty as a fan for begging for an album from a man going through it. He was really at an all-time low, but was able to come back in spite of everything. It isn't a revolutionary concept to be unable to put out material due to personal matters, but in the age of the internet, artist relevancy can fade in only a year or so. So 5 years with no album, or even a feature, can spell the end of one's career. The interview not only cleared the air with the fans about the status of Zay and The House is Burning, but reinvigorated interest with the supposed release date mere weeks away. It was only a matter of time before the album would finally be out, and the hype was real. After 5 long years, Isaiah released his sophomore studio album, The House is Burning, on July 30th, 2021. We finally got the album and it didn't disappoint at all. The project debuted at number 16 on the Billboard 200, selling 42,000 units in the first week. It features longtime collaborators such as J-Rock, SZA, and YG Tut, as well as newer artists like Duke, Deuce, and Amindy. The album also brought upon long-awaited collabs such as Smino and Black, as well as strange pairings that you'd never expect like Lil Uzi Vert. The sound of this album differs from previous releases. While Sylvia Demo was somber and cold, and TheSun'sTirade was bright yet aggressive, The House is Burning is celebratory while maintaining some of the darker undertones that Isaiah was still dealing with on this project. According to Isaiah, if Sylvia Demo was like Fargo and TheSun'sTirade was No Country for Old Men, The House is Burning is like Blade Runner or Hateful Eight. It's an expression of Isaiah's imagination with emotion behind it. It's big in scope, and it keeps bringing people back. While Isaiah's last two projects were more direct with themes, this project is much lighter in presentation despite coming off arguably some of the darkest times in Isaiah's life. I think the reason is because Isaiah wanted to put himself in a better place mentally with this album, which is why you have more fun, upbeat songs like What You Said, From the Garden, and Lay With Ya. The dark portions are still present in tracks like Don't Shoot, The House Is Burning, HBTU, and Headshots, but overall I think Zay, at least in my interpretation, was trying to get over the last few years and reach a better headspace, which explains the sound of the album. If I could break down what The House Is Burning means to me, it's about overcoming difficulty, rising above your past and your problems, recognizing the mistakes and issues that you have, and conquering them. You can't just reside in said problems. You have to recognize what happened and do something, not just for yourself, but for the people who care about you, the people you don't want to let down. It tries to bring you into a more positive space while acknowledging what you've gotten over. The more upbeat feel of the record masks the darker underside you're trying to move past. It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes, or simply escaping from a burning home. It's a record about healing, and I think Isaiah captures that beautifully. I'm not really sure what the future holds for Isaiah Rashad. He managed to pull off a comeback that not many rappers can say they have. To not put out an album in 5 years and return with the industry and fans fully behind you is the mark of someone truly special and beloved by the music community. His ability to simultaneously provide both fun, energetic, and personal melancholic music is part of why I've become such a huge fan of him in the last few years. He's an incredibly charismatic artist that showcased the difficulties of life and how it can affect someone so heavily despite being a successful musician. When I say that he's the most human rapper, it's just that I feel like I get a sense of normalcy from him. His music doesn't feel fabricated or perfectly constructed by a label to maximize profit. It just sounds like a regular person. His albums are like a soundtrack to an underdog story, dealing with everyday issues. The journey these last few years have been interesting. While it was painful waiting for updates and album details, it all paid off with The House Is Burning. With a sold-out US tour, a brief deluxe with additions to the project, and more to come, it's a great time to be an Isaiah Rashad fan. He really deserves the appreciation and success he's receiving after all he's been through. I think he embodies the qualities of an amazing artist, and it's only going to continue for the rest of his career.